Next up on my Steam library, I'm playing Sheltered. Sheltered is a post-apocalyptic sort of base building survival strategy management sim. In it you play a family who have taken refuge underground in their fallout shelter. What's happened above ground isn't immediately made clear, but it doesn't really matter. The world is now a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and you are a family living in your fallout shelter. To start off with, your fallout shelter is fairly small, but the whole idea of the game is to build and improve and craft and survive. You get to customize your family at the beginning, giving them picking like different names or clothes and ability, like set down ability templates. My family is the Trump family. I have you get to pick a father, a mother, a son and a daughter. So I have Donald, Melania, Ivanka and Donald Jr. as my family. So that's how we're starting out in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. So it's a basic resource management sort of game. Your immediate resources you need for survival are water and food. You can gather these various different ways. Food is mostly gathered from foraging and exploring the abandoned buildings around the map. And water is mostly gathered when it rains. You are quite beholden to when it rains to get your water, although there are one or two other ways of getting it. But really most of it's going to come from when it rains, and you collect it in water butts. So you want to build a good number of water butts so you've got a good supply of water. Water is pretty much your main resource. You have to use it for everything. You have to use it to drink, obviously. Expeditions you go out on to explore parts of the map, you need to take water with you. Like it will, when you click where you want to go and explore, it will tell you how much water you need to get there and back. And you can only go as far in the map as you have water. So that's the main thing you'll end up using water for, is to go out on expeditions. And you can send one or two people out in parties. So obviously if you send two people, that's double the amount of water you're going to need. So that's the water. The food, again, you find canned goods, or you can end up trapping animals. Once you trap an animal, you'll need to have a freezer built to store the meat. And then you'll need, although you can eat the meat raw, you're likely to get food poisoning from it. So you'll want a cooker or stove built to cook the meat. And you'll also get more effect out of cooked food than you do out of just eating cold, canned food. As you're exploring out in the wasteland, you'll come across other people. And how these interactions go are a little random, and also down to choices you make. Sometimes you get the choice to pick whether you want to trade or attack or just ignore them, and sometimes they will just attack you, or even if you ask to trade, they will just say no and bugger off. It's, I think, and then if you get into combat, to start off with, you'll just be like fisticuffs, melee combat, and then you can find makeshift weapons like pipes and lumps of wood. And then eventually, once you find decent places, you'll get weapons like firearms, pistols, rifles, shotguns, and you also have to find the ammo to use for them. And it's all pretty sparse, so you never like end up with more of that than you need. You have to be pretty sparing in when you're going to use your ammo to shoot people, and when you think, I might just melee them, because you can always melee them with your weapons as well. It does a fair amount of damage. But shooting people obviously can take them out in one or two hits. I think it's pretty dice roll based, the combat, based on your stats. Each weapon has a strength to get a strength requirement to get the most out of it, and if you're below that, it will do less damage. So yeah, you never really see get in depth. There's no specific moves or anything you can do. You just click attack, and the game decides whether you hit and how much damage you do. So as you explore, you'll find different places on the map, and they're all called like different buildings. They'll be called like a house or a restaurant or a petrol station or a pharmacy, and each different building I think has a likelihood of having a different type of loot, and I think it's mostly random. And once you've been to a place, you can go back to it. It tells you how many days it's been since you last visited it. I think if you give a place, you know, like 10 days or so between visits, it's likely to have spawned some more loot to go back to. And there's quite a bit of stuff to collect, quite a large number of items in the game, and the crafting is quite simple in that you just need a number of items to craft, and you can upgrade your workstation to craft higher grade things, and that's what you'll spend most of your time doing, is exploring, foraging parts and crafting things you need for your shelter to survive and to get better and to build more rooms to expand your shelter downwards. Occasionally on the map there crops up some quests. They're pretty basic, like someone will ask you to bring him some antibiotics or some food, and you can decide whether you're going to or not. It's sometimes worth it. They'll sometimes give you something decent in return, and sometimes I'll just say thank you very much and go on their way, and something you can just say no as well. There's also different factions that will appear on the map as you go on. These factions will like highlight a certain area, and they will be like in control of that area. So if you go foraging, exploring in that area, you will come across them and in the buildings that you're going to go to, and quite likely have to fight them if you want to be able to carry on exploring and collecting stuff in that area. So you have to be aware of that. If you make sure you go armed if you're going to go in those sort of areas. So I've played it for about 20 hours, and I've really enjoyed it so far. Just so to start off with, I had like the Trump family. Oh, and you get to pick a pet as well. You have a different types of pet, and I had a pet snake called Hillary. And she was my first casualty. Hillary died on day 16 through starvation. I was running very low on food, and could only afford to be feeding the family, and so I'm afraid Hillary starved. And then my next casualty on day 34 was the Donald himself. I'm afraid the Donald perished from injuries sustained on a expedition. He got ambushed. He came back very low on health, bleeding, and he'd also contracted radiation poisoning at that point as well. And he made it back to the shelter, but I'm afraid he succumbed to his injuries before he was able to get the medical attention he required. And so we buried him up top above the shelter in a very solemn ceremony. But so far, after that, Ivanka, Millennia and Donald Jr. have survived. All the way up to where I'm at the moment is about day 135. And we've also recruited a few other members into the shelter as well to help out and go out with us on foraging and expeditions. So that's going pretty good at the moment. I've got a good supply of food, good supply of water. I'm not on the brink, although there was a point where I was on the brink of just everyone starving or dying of dehydration, but I managed to get over that, and now I'm in a pretty good spot, and I've got the highest tier workstation, so I can now craft the highest tier equipment, and I'm in a pretty good spot. Although I am finding it a little bit repetitive now, getting a little bit boring now. There is one objective I'd like to complete, which is to complete the camper van, the RV, which you've got up on the surface. There are parts you need for that, and I think these are rare loot spawns in certain areas. Like a scrapyard, I found like the alternator and the starter motor and tires you need and things like that. So you just have to keep searching those kind of areas, scrapyards, petrol stations, to find the parts for the RV, and then you can take the RV out on expeditions as well. But that's really the only thing I've got left that I want to do. But I don't know if I'm going to carry on playing it now. Say after about 20 hours, it's getting just a little bit too repetitive. So its full price is $9.99, which I think is probably worth it, because it is a nice little survival base building game, and I think you'll get a decent amount of play out of it if you like those kind of things. Just quite mellow game to sit back and play. It's not too stressful, although it can get, in all these games where you have to rely on resources, you can be on the brink of dying at any point if things go wrong. But yeah, $9.99 is not bad, but any sale price below that is even better. Right, so that's Sheltered, a nice post-apocalyptic base building strategy game, up on Steam for $9.99.